This is Hetty. I'm going to quote her a lot today. In Science and Health, she talks about language and about the difference in language. And then, and she says, I have not heard, nor hath lips spoken, the pure language of spirit. Pure language of spirit. Is that English? Is that Spanish? And then she says, the intercommunication is always from God to His idea, man. If God's the only one who speaks, intercommunication from His idea, so, and God doesn't speak English, what's the common thing about the language of God? It is the language of love. And love is not English or Spanish or Sanskrit or whatever. So what is language? It's a human concept, isn't it? It's matter. It's part of the incarnate error. Do you agree? Language is part of the incarnate error. So how was I able to communicate with the people in my hotel? How are you able to speak and communicate with people who do not speak your language? And again, we are agreeing that language is a human concept. It's part of something that Christ comes to destroy. Loving them. If you love them, you will be able to communicate with them somehow. And what's wrong about this is that, I hate to use this word, self-righteousness of, you need to speak that. When we do that, we're standing ourselves outside of the circle because we're judging somebody. See? Now, within, humanity, even we are in the United States, it is okay to speak English. It is the right thing to speak English. But when I stand in there and say, you need to speak English because this is the United States, I'm standing outside the circle. If I love this person, that person is going to want to speak English because they want to communicate with us. Remember that the intercommunication is from God to man. The trick is not to judge. Most of my career was in human resources. And part of that had to do with, human resources has many aspects, and one of those aspects is training. Well, I worked for the electric company in Houston for a long time. And there was this group of computer people, I'm talking about mid to late 80s, when computer programs started sprouting all over the place, who did not get along at all. And if you know corporate America and you know computer departments, you know that there is a lot of people in there from India and from China and from Japan and from everywhere else. And they did not get along. And the computer department in those days was very important. And there were grievances in that department up and down. So I was asked to do a program on cooperative work relationships with that department. I said, how can I make him cooperate? In human resources, you know that you are as good as the last thing you did. No matter how good I was for 10 years, if I mess up, it's bye-byes. So the pressure was on. So, don't ask me how. I came up with a place. It's an island called Mauritius. I never heard of it. Somehow, I found out about Mauritius, and I looked them up. And here's what I found out. You can read this in the web. It says, government and administrative work is written in English. Okay. The press uses French, which is understood by more of the population than English. So now we have all the government work and the administrative work is in English. But the newspapers come out in French. The majority of the people understand a Creole language. Just like the people in Haiti, they speak kind of patois. There is no agreed upon written form of this language, of the Creole, however, and it appears unlikely that this would be adapted as a national language. At the school level, the official policy is to promote ancestral languages, some with strange names such as Tamil, Bhojpuri, and Urdu. I had never heard of them. Thus, its true state of languages seems to be genuinely a hybrid affair, and the government finds this the least intrusive of all possible measures. Guess what? We've talked about 7 different languages that people speak all over the place in there? They get along. There is no strife in Mauritius. They celebrate their differences. Not only the differences in language, but difference in culture, difference in religion. It is okay. Why do they get along? What is the common bond? That is the common bond. That is the glue. You see what differences in language does? It's to divide us. It's to put us all outside the circle. That's what the differences in language do. So if we love, we'll come back here. And that's exactly what happened to that group. And I saved my job. They started trying to find out about each other. You say, well, if Mauritians can do it, why can't we? The number of grievances in that group went down, something like 60% the first one. The world will always try to separate us by reason of language, of gender, nationality. You name it. That's what the world wants to do. But guess what? Who comes to the rescue to destroy all of that? World thought that is outside the circle is the Christ. And of course it does get destroyed by the power of the big little. You know, the more that I read Mary Baker Eddy, the more that I get in awe of her. She says, everything that I have said here for an hour, she says it in one paragraph. She says, one infinite God, good, unifies men and nations, constitutes the brotherhood of man, ends wars, fulfills the scripture, love thy neighbor as thyself, annihilates pagan and Christian idolatry. Whatever is wrong in social, civil, criminal, political, and religious codes equalizes the sexes, annuls the curse of man, and leaves nothing that can sin, suffer, be punished, or destroyed. Thank you.